A successful and highly driven wedding planner returns to her hometown where she reunites with her old sweetheart. The story begins in the city of Portland where we see Zoe working with a customer. The bride-to-be seems to be hard to please, but Zoe manages to settle on a deal with her, as they compromise the winter decorations she wants to have for her wedding in June. As Zoe's working on her desk, her work partner Nick brings her coffee. He complains about chasing a solicitor the whole morning because the solicitor forgot to fund the wedding, and one wonders why wedding planning has become so difficult. They talk about how times have changed, how it was easier to plan a wedding when people were doing it out of love, and not for it to be some extravaganza. Being on the topic of marriage, Nick makes it known that he has given up on love, but Zoe tells him that she would never give up. Surprisingly, she lets him know that she has a date and proceeds to show him the guy she's going out with. In the bio of his dating profile, it says that he's a part-time vegan, which is a red flag according to Nick. Given the fact that they've been working hard, Zoe suggests they shut down the office for a week and go on vacation, because she knows that he needs one. Right as she's about to check the calendar, she realizes that she's going to be late for her date, so she heads out. Later in the evening, as she's rushing to get ready, she gets a phone call from her mother. Her mother lets her know that her father had broken his leg and will be resting for a while, so Zoe gets the great idea of coming over to help since she has been wanting time off for herself either way. The next morning, she buys Nick coffee and they sit down to enjoy it. He asks about her date, and that is when she tells him that she has to leave for romance the following day because her dad broke his leg and her mother can't run the cafe alone. Fully understanding her situation, he lets her know that it's fine and that he has everything under control. However, he does admit to being jealous as he wants a vacation for himself, so Zoe invites him to romance anytime he wants, but little does he know what's waiting for him there. We see Zoe arriving at romance the following morning, and after taking some pictures, she heads straight to her father's cafe. Entering the coffee shop, she sees an elderly local woman who is more than surprised to see her. After welcoming her, she lets her know where her mother is, so Zoe heads to find her. She finally greets her mother, who admits to already finding help for the cafe, but Zoe lets him know that it's fine since she came to visit her father either way. Curious as to who they got to help her, she asks, but her mother tries to dodge the question. That is until Will, her ex, comes to the front delivering orders. She is surprised to see him there just as he is, but her mother lets her know that Will has been a great chef. Her mother goes off to serve the tables, so Zoe gets closer to the counter to talk to Will. They talk about his parents and he lets her know that he has moved back in town. Their old classmate Amanda walks in and greets Will but doesn't notice Zoe. He reminds her that they used to go to school with Zoe, but she doesn't seem interested in talking to Zoe. She leaves the cafe without saying goodbye, so Zoe decides to head out as well after catching up with Will. Before she exits the cafe, she scolds her mother for not telling her that her ex is working at their cafe, but her mother claims to have thought that they broke up on good terms. Not letting it get to her, she tells her mother that she's going to see her dad before exiting the cafe. On her ride to their house, she spots the old barn, which brings back some memories. After driving around for a while, she gets to her childhood home where she sees her father lying on the couch with a cast on his leg. Intrigued, she asks him whether he thinks that it's weird for Will to work at their cafe, but he lets her know that he doesn't since her mother needs help and he needs a job. Changing the top, he lets her know he has a surprise waiting for her outside, so they head to the backyard. In a place where it used to be only dirt, he planted the cherry tree sapling that she gave him, and he shows her that it's almost ready to flower, claiming that it's happy that she's back home. Driving to the old barn house later in the afternoon, Zoe looks around the place where she made the most memories. Inside the barn, she sees where Will had carved their initials into a heart, marking their love on their territory. Looking around the room, every moment ever spent there comes back to her a beautiful memory. On her way back, she passes Amanda's bakery, and after Amanda sees her, she can't restrict herself from the bad comments. Her coworker asks whether that was Zoe, and by the look Amanda gives her, she's sure that it is her. Amanda hopes that she's not staying for long, but Peyton assures her that Zoe is fine. Amanda tries to make Zoe look bad in Peyton's eyes, but it doesn't seem to work on her, so she just tells her that Zoe broke Will's heart. Peyton thinks that he's over it, and Amanda reveals that he hasn't been involved with anyone for a while, which is a great opportunity for her. Zoe goes to the cafe to get some pie for her dad, and instead of the usual lemon pie, her mother tells her that she'll be bringing her father the banana cream pie. She is confused by the sudden change, so her mother asks her to sit down and try the pie herself. She is amazed by the taste of it and wonders what Will S twists on it, so her mother calls him over to tell her about an event he's hosting. He tells Zoe that he's cooking some food for friends to try, so she asks whether she can join. After assuring that she has $30 to $5 for dinner, he lets her know that she's more than welcome. Before he returns to work, she asks him about the secret ingredient, but he doesn't tell her. After bringing her father the slice of pie, she heads to the kitchen and calls Nick to check up on him. He lets her know that she left the place organized, so everything is going great. She starts going over the planning for one customer, but he asks her to relax since he has it all in her book. Admitting to being relaxed in her hometown, she wishes he experiences the same, so he suggests coming over. Excitedly, she asks him to text her when he'll be coming. In the evening, we see Amanda and some other local ladies waiting to try Will's dishes. Before Will comes out, Amanda makes it known that she told him about the honey and mint as a part of one of his dishes, but her proud smile drops once Zoe sits at the table. At the same time, Will comes out with the appetizers, popcorn with locally churned butter and pickled seasoning. Everyone seems to be amazed by the taste of the popcorn, so when Will asks for comments, Amanda lets him know that she likes the richness of the butter and the tartness of the pickles. Opposite of her comment, Zoe simply says that she likes that he gave them enough to keep them hungry. As Will disappears into the kitchen, the women start bombarding her with questions about Will and whether she's back. Instead of answering, she changes the topic by asking Amanda about her bakery. Will saves the day as he brings them their second course and the night goes by fast. At the end of the dinner, he gives each of the ladies some popcorn before returning to the table. Zoe asks to pay for her dinner, so he lets her know that he only accepts payment in the form of dishwashing. Given that she used to be the best dishwasher in town, she agrees to do it, but before they get to that, she suggests they drink the leftover wine. After handing her 2 wine glasses, he decides to let her know about the secret ingredient of the banana cream pie. Pulling out his bottle of vanilla extract, he lets her smell it before telling her that he made it on his own. As they sit down, he asks her about her life and she claims to love her job but admits that she feels like she's babysitting bridezillas sometimes. He suggests she talks to her partner and sees where they are. She asks him the same and he says that he's back in town, ready to open up a restaurant but has problems doing so since he can't sell the old farm. He hasn't found a way to sell it, but the worst thing is that if he doesn't, his parents would lose money, and he would have to put his restaurant plans aside. Right at that moment, Zoe gets an idea. She asks to buy the farm from him, so she can restore it and turn it into a wedding venue. She thinks that it's a great business opportunity and has a positive impact on the whole community, but Will thinks otherwise. He lets her know that she can't change the community of romance and that a farm should only be resorted into a farm. Instead of talking about it more, he asks her to leave even after her asking him to stay and talk. The following morning we can see that Zoe is slightly upset, but after getting a text from Nick letting her know that he'll be there on Wednesday, a smile reappears on her face. Her dad comes down and she gets concerned as to why he's walking when he's recovering. He tells her not to worry about her old man. However, he admits to being worried about her since she looks upset. She lets him know that she spoke to Will about the wedding venue, and he agrees that it's a great idea as well. She tells him how he shut her down and made it seem like she was outside trying to change the place, so her father tells her the story about how he convinced her mother to open up their cafe, the Celeste's Place. Her mother had thought that it was too risky to open up a restaurant, but with great persistence and a solid business plan, it worked out. Given that Will already wants to open up a business, she could approach the plan favoring his idea, and it would be more appealing to him. To thank him for his help, she makes pancakes for breakfast before working on the plan. After figuring the plan out, she asks Will to meet her at the barn where she wants to present the plan. Instead of listening to her, he immediately tells her that he won't change his mind. She understands where he's coming from, but reveals that she has already spoken to his parents and that they love the idea. Will is baffled that his parents support the idea but lets her know that he needs support from the local farms, and without that, his restaurant will fail. She thinks that she could convince the whole of romance because she already managed to convince his parents, but he lets her know that farmers value traditions and don't like changes, especially from city girls like her. They bicker back and forth about who is an outsider and who's not until they eventually come to a deal. Zoe claims that she's moving back into town, so he lets her know that if she convinces the mayor to let her open up the wedding venue, then he'll let her do it. After the meeting, Zoe goes to Amanda's bakery where she meets her mother. Every detail about the wedding venue is told to her mom, but when Zoe tells her that she'll be coming back, Amanda drops the plate she's holding out of shock. After making sure she's okay, they go back to their conversation and her mother tells her that she's excited to have her back. Zoe admits to missing the town and lets her mother know that Nick will be visiting on Wednesday, giving her a great opportunity to talk to him about her decision. As Zoe's working in the garden, Nick suddenly appears and she's happy to see him there. Wasting no time, she tells him that she plans on not coming back because she has a wedding idea that she wants him to be a part of. He asks about the details, so she takes him to the barn. There are many plans she has for the barn and he agrees that they're successful enough to expand. However, the deal hasn't been closed yet, but Zoe claims that she'll have it closed once she presents the idea to the mayor. We see them at the restaurant next, looking at the mayor who's sitting by herself at the table. Zoe takes the chance and sits at her table, asking to present her idea. Having seen her application for a business license, the mayor lets her know that she has 5 minutes before Norman Hines arrives. Zoe begins by saying that the beauty of the farm inspired her to transform the farm into a beautiful wedding venue, and she asks her permission for it. The mayor is confused as to what she means by a wedding venue, so Zoe explains that it would be a place for weddings and celebrations that people can rent. Same as Will, the mayor thinks that farms should be used for farming only and that no benefit will come from parties. Zoe suggests that a wedding venue will give a great opportunity for use when the land's time for farming is over, but Norman Hines chimes in to let her know that time for farming is never over. He thinks that they need farmers more than ever. Zoe lets them know that she only needs their approval, but the mayor asks Will once again, who says that his farm is not open for commercial business. The mayor denies her business license and tells her if she wants to move forward, she'll have to obtain a zoning permit from the zoning office of Norman Hines. Zoe and Will walk out to talk about it, but Zoe lets him know that the rejection doesn't count. Nick joins them and Will is surprised to see that she has a partner, but she reminds him that she told him at the cafe. Amanda joins their conversation as well, and it appears that she and Nick can't keep their eyes off each other. Confident in her plan, Zoe goes to the restaurant to get some pie before visiting Mr. Hines. She gets the banana cream pie, but Will doesn't let her take it since Mr. Hines would think that she's bribing him with his pie. They go back and forth until Zoe decides to take the lemon pie instead. At Mr. Hines' office, she tries to share her idea, but not only does he ignore her ideas, but he also asks her to take her lemon pie back as he prefers banana cream pie. Sitting at the table eating lemon pie, Zoe is joined by Nick, who at least seems to be in a better mood. Lost of all hope, she accepts Will's victory. Her father sits down with them and notices that they're upset. Zoe assumes that the town isn't ready for the farm to be converted. Her father gives her another great idea as he reminds her that Amanda is his niece and that maybe she can go and talk to her. Immediately, Zoe goes to the bakery where she finds out the shocking truth. Not only does Amanda assume that Mr. Hines said no, but she reveals that it was she who told him to decline it. She considers Zoe to be an outsider as well, despite their going to school together, so she asks her to take her big ideas back to Portland. That drives Zoe over the edge as we see her ready to go back to Portland with Nick. Nick is surprised to see her ready to leave but asks her to stay. Instead of leaving, he decides to stay with her in town to help her remind everyone that she is a part of romance. Remembering that there's a farmer's market that same day, he asks to go there so she can go back to her roots. As they enter the market, they see Mr. Hines, but Nick asks her not to think about him. They go to Filey's, who has a beautiful setup of flowers of all sorts. As they're talking, Nick excuses himself but Will joins them. After getting the flowers he requested, they head to another setup, which is when he asks her how long she and Nick have been partners. She misunderstands the question as she starts talking about how long they've been work partners while Will meant it as love partners. He lets her know that he's happy for her and she understands that his question was love related, so she assures him that he's like her brother. Nick lets her know that there's a flower crown booth somewhere in the fair and they go search for it. After having fun, they head to the restaurant, but Nick stops at Amanda's cafe. Knowing that she's not welcome there, Zoe lets him enjoy himself while she heads to the restaurant. Walking in, Nick is amazed by the delicious smell, so he orders what he's smelling. Amanda asks what brings him to romance, and he lets her know that Zoe's always talked about how special the town is, so he decided to see it himself. Handing him a brownie, she hopes for positive feedback, but he burns his mouth, which is luckily saved by Peyton bringing a glass of milk. Once the burn goes away, he lets them know that their brownies are delicious and even asks them if they've thought about expanding. Amanda reveals that she wants to open another store, but he tells her that they can expand nationally. Before he leaves, he asks her whether she'd be interested in going for coffee with him, and she says that she would love to. Zoe decides to not let anyone treat her like an outsider anymore, so she goes to Mr. Hines' office to let him know that she'll be fighting him in the petition. If she gets enough signatures, she won't need his approval. In the cafe, Will and Zoe's mother are going through the spring menu when he opens the topic of Zoe's wedding menu. She lets him know that it's all fine with her, but it is Zoe who she's worried about. Will is shocked to find out that Zoe wanted to leave in the morning because everyone made her feel like an outsider, and it even makes him reconsider his decision. Mr. Hines comes into the cafe and sits next to him. He tells Will that he's considering banning entrance for any outsiders that try to come to romance. Will realizes that his parents won't be welcome anymore if the decision goes through, and while Mr. Hines tries to apologize, Will doesn't listen to him but goes outside and calls Zoe, asking her to meet him at the farm. They meet at the farm and he asks her to show him her ideas. Zoe starts with the plan for the parking lot, and since the barn is in good shape, she suggests they only clean it out and make space for tables and a dance floor. They head to the orchards and vineyards, which Zoe thinks are good places for wedding photos. The barn's history could be advertised, and that way they could do tours for the wedding guests. They head to the barn house and after looking around, Will notices the heart he carved out. They reminisce about the time that made that memory, and Will can't believe that it's been 12 years. For the first time, Zoe takes the chance to apologize for hurting him when she moved away. However, he lets her know that she didn't hurt him because both of them were into different things which they had to go and experience their way. He admits being unfair to her as the rest of the town has, so to apologize for being a jerk, he takes her to the vineyards where a beautiful setup waits for them. Pouting them a glass of wine, he reveals that the wine is vintage and that he saved it for the right occasion, confirming that he's on board with the project. After taking a sip of the wine, both of them start laughing as the wine appears to have gone bad. Zoe and will sit with Nick trying to come up with some ideas for how to get enough signatures. Will proposes going to local businesses and asking them to be the vendors for their weddings. For starters, he points to Bertha. Other than working in the cafe, Bertha is a well-known photographer who enjoys doing wedding photos. Nick heads to convince her to help them out, but she doesn't need much convincing as she assures them they have her help because she loves Zoe like her own daughter. Next, Will introduces them to the beekeeper Anna, who admits that the business hasn't been thriving lately. Nick and Anna jump at the opportunity and ask her whether her parents would be interested in working with them on the wedding venues. After giving out her number, Zoe and Nick head to the local market where they meet Will. Bringing some good news, he lets them know that a friend of his who owns a stable is interested in working with them for horse and carriage rides. Will suggests they grab a bite to eat to celebrate, but Nick lets them know that he has some business of his own to deal with. He heads to Amanda's bakery where he asks her to work with him and Zoe, since it was Zoe who told him great things about her and the cafe at the end of the day. Amanda thanks him for the kind words, so he takes the chance to invite her to dinner. We see Will and Zoe walking down the pier as she thanks him for everything he's done. Later in the evening, as they're walking by the restaurant, she lets him know that it means a lot to her that he's supporting her idea and helping her realize it. He lets her know that he's not doing only for her and Nick, and he leans in for a kiss. Right as they're about to kiss, Zoe's mother comes out of the cafe, interrupting their kiss, so they head inside to enjoy some dinner. The next morning, Zoe is vividly lost in her mind, so her father asks her what she's thinking about. She thinks that Will wants to be more than friends, but when it comes to her decision, she's not sure about it. The doorbell rings, so Zoe goes to get it. Opening the door, she sees a box on her doorstep, so she sits down to open it. In it, there are business cards for her and Nick's venue, and once he sits next to her, it's clear that he didn't order them. After getting a couple of them, he leaves to go on a date with Amanda, which he claims is a favor for Zoe since she doesn't like her. Zoe manages to get another signature from Filey Eyes, who asks to be the only florist at the venue. Not only does she promise her vote, she promises 10 more from her friends. The day of the trial finally comes, and before Zoe leaves, she sees her father ready to go as well. Despite her asking him not to because he'll have to stand for so long, he ends up coming with them. The trial begins as the mayor asks Zoe whether she has obtained her zoning permit. Zoe lets her know that she hasn't, but after doing research, she has gathered 102 signatures in favor of the wedding venue. Unfortunately, Mr. Hines presents his petition as well, which has 106 signs, therefore beating Zoe's. Zoe asks for everyone's attention as she delivers a speech about her not trying to change the town, but rather finding a way to stay there. Once again, she asks for a chance to show them how wonderful it could be to preserve the old farm. Will chimes in as well. He lets them know that the farm has been on sale for over a year, and yet no one has offered to buy it. He believes that Zoe has a vision that could save the farm and broaden the business in the town. As he finishes his speech, Nick asks Amanda to change her vote, and so she does, and Peyton does as well. They are brought to a tie, but John Stanson from the cattle ranch saves the day by voting for Zoe. Everyone jumps for joy as the mayor grants Zoe her business permit. They go to the cafe next to sign all the papers. While Nick and Amanda are romancing all over each other, Zoe and Will agree. Before she signs the papers, she asks him to be the exclusive caterer for the venue, which he agrees to. 1 year later, we are taken to Zoe and Will's wedding at the venue where, from the flowers to the honey, all the businesses seem to be thriving. Zoe walks down the aisle where she officially becomes Will's wife. At the reception, Nick makes a toast to wish them a happy marriage, and they all toast in their name. Being left alone, Zoe admits to feeling like she's in a dream, but Will lets her know that's what happens when you get married in romance. You get to achieve your dream.